Welcome Cancer to your in-depth monthly horoscope for November 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will dive deeper to give you all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. I want you to mark the 13th of November in your diary. Your ruler, the moon, is going to align with the sun, but also Mars. Now, the moon and the Mars combination together can be a little bit volatile, but I feel because it's in your 5th house, this is really going to be a platform for the following month to enjoy life to the absolute max. It really is pushing you to mix and mingle. Now, there is a full moon which occurs towards the end of the month on the 27th, which is more complex, to be honest. It occurs in your 12th solar house, but it is going to be opposite Mars at this time, but also squaring up with Saturn. So that is more tenuous, but please stay with me for more. With year 2024 speeding towards us, if you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, I'll prepare the rest of year 2023 for you free of charge. But also in my special package of 30% off, I'll prepare for you your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will give you searing insights to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but helping you to get a much more intimate understanding of how to work with these in a really adroit way. Please see the link beneath this video for more information. So Cancer, as you make your way into November 2023, the Sun, Mercury and Mars are all in your 5th house. Let's just explore the 5th house archetype. First up, it shares your triplicity, your water triplicity. So these Scorpio influences link back to the position of your sign in a very harmonious way. The 5th house is very much where we express our individuality, but it's where we can have fun, enjoyment, pleasure. It can be where we have that social interaction, even a splash of romance too. If you have children, their pursuits can be important to you this month as well. But as we go into this month, Venus, in the part of your situation to do with your everyday conversation, is in a beautiful but rather mystical opposition with Neptune. It's possible that you could be exchanging some messages with someone in the first week of this month, which really are very intriguing. But also, if you're someone who really enjoys music or film, you can really move your senses in quite the way as you make your way into November, a way that can really lift your heart. But on the 4th, Saturn, which has been in a retrograde since mid-June and also been in your sister water sign of Pisces since the 7th of March, well, that ends a retrograde, which is to be welcomed. But we have two other polarized oppositions between the Sun and Jupiter, and also between Mercury and Uranus. Now, the first of those, the Sun opposite Jupiter, is a real feel-good aspect. Although they're polarized, Jupiter can be about growth, and in your 11th house, very social. Of course, it is in retrograde, but I think the Sun opposite Jupiter offers opportunities, but it also possibly offers some choices, and that could see you a little unsure what to do. But then something could happen in the first week of this month that moves things very, very swiftly. And this is because Mercury is in an electric opposition with the retreating Uranus. It could be a surprise conversation. It could be a letter that you get, an email, something which really sets you alive, something that can refresh you. Maybe it could also be a bit of a challenge. It's possible, for example, that if there's someone you're drawn to, someone else can suddenly enter the scene. Or it may be that you're needing to balance the time you have with different obligations, responsibilities and people. So communication around your time management is important at the start of this month. But on the 8th, Venus moves into one of its two home signs of Libra. Venus loves being in Libra. It's going to be here through to the end of the month. And for you, it's very much about encouraging the more nurturing side of your nature, but particularly if you're someone who likes to have your abode in just the right decorative order. So if there is some upgrading that needs to be done, it wouldn't be a surprise if you were grabbing the paint charts and the brushes and upgrading from the 8th onwards. But also, it's possible that if you want to move altogether, Venus is going to give you the desire to make things happen in a fundamental way. Now, Mercury moves on the 10th into the sign of Sagittarius. Now, Mercury here technically is debilitated, but for you, it's moved into a part of your situation which is to do with practicality. So if you have been generating some brilliant ideas at the start of this month, especially creatively, and that wouldn't be a surprise, Mercury is going to help you to think about things with an extra sense of precision about how you can implement those ideas in a lasting way. But Mercury does clash through to the 12th with Pluto. So although Pluto goes direct on the 4th, it's still going to have a big role to play this month, and this is the first of its angular connections, this time Mercury. So how you think, how you express yourself, but also how you plan. And Mercury for you, moving into Sagittarius, is very much about details. It's about being very discriminating. So Saturn, in a way, is asking you to download more information and knowledge, but at the same time can feel limiting about the things you want to expand around. And what Mercury is basically saying is, look, you need to grapple the detail in order to feed the potential to widen your approach. So in a way, you're a bit snookered. So you could find yourself a bit pulled around, but the best way to deal with this is narrow your focus and concentrate on the things that are truly essential. A bit dull, but because you're a brilliant manager of resources, if anyone can handle that particular aspect, it is going to be you. But there may be somebody that you get a letter from. It could be about a contractual matter, and maybe it can niggle you a little bit because it seems to you that someone's missing the point, the big picture, in order to make a more minor point. However, a wonderful new moon on the 13th, I feel, for you, because this gives you a lot of encouragement to be proactive. Yes, the new moon being next door to Mars can be quite lively, to say the least, because Mars is very much about action, impatience, desire. The moon's more about receptiveness, and your natural way of approaching things is to evaluate your sense of security in the environment before you make any moves. So you're being hurried along a little bit, to be honest, Cancer, and it's saying to you, don't sit on your hands. You know, if there is someone you fancy, for example, maybe you're being asked to use your cardinality, your leadership talent, to actually initiate some change. I don't think it's the best new moon to be passive. It's a new moon to take the initiative. If you like, even though it's in your sister water sign of Scorpio, which in itself is very passionate because Mars is the ruler of this sign, there is a kind of Leonian vibe to this. It's about needing to feel adored, needing to feel recognized for what makes you special, attractive, alluring, or just darn right creatively brilliant. So over the next month, do be as proactive as you possibly can. Now, the 18th to the 22nd sees the Sun angling to Pluto. If there is someone that you're really drawn to and you mutually help to transform one another's situation, that can be a very helpful alliance. The sextile is not quite as enabling as, say, a trine, but it's certainly giving you a lot of encouragement. And Pluto, of course, can be about change, but it can also be about truth. And sometimes it can be about power. And perhaps around a romantic relationship, who does and contributes what, and boundaries and all the rest of it is always a critical thing. But what the Sun and Pluto are saying to you is that if there is somebody that meets a lot of your need, don't let what's not quite right, which could be coming a little bit from the energy of Mercury, derail you from appreciating the things that are really positive about this. And that could be true if there's somebody on your horizon that you're drawn to, that you don't quite get it. Just be conscious that there are opportunities to grow, and growing doesn't always mean we get everything we want on our terms. It means sometimes we have to understand that where we need to just evolve with things and go with the flow. And because of the fixed energy of the sign of Scorpio, it is important not to resist something that actually can be very good for you if you can just trust the process somewhat. But the 22nd and the 24th does see the Sun and Mars move into your 6th house. Any ideas that you've been generating earlier in the month have a brilliant opportunity now to be moulded into something more substantive and lasting. The 6th house, very much like Virgo, but having Mars in the 6th house is very physically energizing. But the catch is that Saturn squares up with both straight away. So as much as you may decide to narrow your focus and try to be productive, somehow or another you may not quite have quite as much heft as you would like in order to complete the task. That said, from the 25th to the 30th, Mercury in that 6th house then squares up to Neptune in the 9th house. It's possible that around a work situation that something you're being told is not right. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone's trying to deliberately mislead you. It may mean that there's some confusion in the chain of command, or some details around the job description aren't quite accurate. And it's important to ask questions and check things out so that you inform yourself in a way that you're satisfied with. Because by the 27th, the full moon, which occurs in your 12th house, is probably the most challenging full moon of the year in a way, because the 12th house is very much about the subconscious. It's about the parts of our nature we're not so aware of. You know, we may feel that we know ourselves intimately, but another person may spend 10 minutes with us and work out that we've got various issues, agendas, resistances, hang-ups, but not tell us, because some people can be very astute. And it's possible, because this particular full moon does T-square with Saturn and back into an opposition with the Sun and Mars, that something a little bit uncomfortable can be pushed into the open as this month draws to a close. For example, if you work with people that you're not particularly at ease with, don't totally trust, it is the case that maybe you could feel a little bit undermined in some way. Watch out for someone who's a bit of a stickler for rules and regulations. As we all know, laws are subjective. So a law that exists in one part of the world could see someone be, in some ways killed for a particular lifestyle choice, religious choice. In another part of the world, they could be celebrated. So laws themselves are quite subjective. But wherever you are, whatever the rules and regulations are in your particular environment, do be mindful of them as this month comes to a close. Because there's part of you that could actually be quite rebellious and defensive if you feel that someone is raising something that you feel isn't naturally fair. But the difference between natural fairness and the rule can be vast in many places. So you may need to be a little bit more conscious that how you see something may not be what another person's expectation is, or what they intend to hold you to. So can be some politics as this month draws to a close, but generally speaking, I feel that November is a time for you to really be much more interactive with other people, much more demonstrative, much more passionate. It can see you making some moves around a home situation, but later in the month, much more to do with practicalities. But if you're not particularly fulfilled in a role at the moment, or you feel your home isn't running quite as organisedly as it could, or people aren't taking their share of the domestic chores, the end of the month can see you feistier about all of these things, but also finding the spark of energy to do something about it, even if it does mean it's a bit uncomfortable to push back, perhaps about some sensitive issues, and it could be about your perception of what's fair against what someone else wants to apply to you, and that's where the politics may come as this month draws to a close.